Okay. Hi, James.
Hi, Vinny.
And hi, everybody else that's joining in on us. We're going to have some fun with Penny Lane today. And I guess, James, why don't we just go right into it and give your little
Sure.
sort of preamble to the song?
My little preamble before we get to the meat and potatoes. Yes. So, for those in the know and or interested, the first recording session for what became Penny Lane, which I believe the original working title was Untitled, was on Thursday, 29th of December, 1966. And so I'm going to take this from the Beatles recording sessions, or whatever that book is called, by Mark Lewison, which I'm sure he would be cringing at because it's so out of date now. He wrote this decades ago. There's so much more research. But anyway, good enough for our purposes. He writes, interviewed in November 1965, Paul McCartney mentioned that he'd been toying with the idea of writing a song called Penny Lane because he liked the poetry of the name. Penny Lane was, and still is, the name of a road in the suburb immediately to the south of Liverpool city centre, close to where the Beatles grew up. It took another year for Paul to actually write the song, but with its description of the shops and the people and the blue suburban skies, his Penny Lane was a fine counterpoint to John's Strawberry Fields Forever. Quite why both men, in their typically different ways, should choose to write songs about Liverpool at this point in time, when neither had lived there for more than 3 years, is not known. But together, the two songs would form a dynamite, seemingly thematic February 1967 single release, although, of course, at this time, both were intended for the In the Works album, not a single. One of the most distinctive aspects of Penny Lane would be its keyboard sound, and this entire evening, Thursday, 29th December 1966, session saw the recording of these parts. The most important contribution was the main piano piece, so Paul took great care in perfecting this, recording 6 takes until he was satisfied, although only the 5th and 6th were seen through to completion. This piano went on to track 1 of the 4-track tape. Happiest with the 6th take, he then began to apply the overdubs, working alone in the studio. Onto track 2 of the tape went another piano, played this time through a Vox guitar amplifier with added reverberation to give an entirely different sound. Onto track 3 went yet another piano, played at half speed, and then speeded up on replay to give another different effect. A tambourine was also shaken for this overdub. So I guess that means the tambourine was also sped up. Interesting. Superimposed onto track 4 were two-tone high-pitch whistles from a harmonium, again fed through a Vox guitar amplifier, various strange percussion effects, one of them sounding at times like a machine gun, and extremely fast and sometimes drawn-out cymbal notes. This was as far as the recording went at this stage. The song was picked up again on the 30th of December, where the next step was to mix these 4 tracks down to 1 and then begin the overdubbing process all over again. 2 rough mono remixes were made of the recordings done so far. And then he gives a couple of paragraphs to talk about some of the other work they were doing at the time on When I'm 64 and Strawberry Fields Forever, and making the remix, the mono and stereo mix for that, and etc. And he ends this date, Thursday, 29th December, with further proof that the Beatles' recordings had become considerably more complicated of late, need not be supplied. Well
there
said.
You go. Yeah. Yes, this was a very producey stage for the Beatles, slapping on the colors and yeah. One thing I'll always regret is that this double A side, Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane, were not included on Sgt. Pepper. I think it would have added some sort of, I don't know, they're just so perfect for the record,
I, of course, agree with you, because these are masterpiece songs that have the thematic thing going on that would have worked so well on this album. Of course, it would have made an all-time great album even greater. But you know what? I'm going to defend the album, because Sgt. Pepper was never one of my favorite albums. It's all right. It's got some good songs, but it was never one of my favorite albums until the 2017 50th anniversary remix came out. And I don't know if it was the remix or just hearing it again in a different format, at a different time, in a different context, but it really blew me away. It was, especially, I think the remix really brought out the bass on this album. It's so amazing. And it really gave me a different perspective, and I really started to appreciate Sergeant Pepper to the point where now I still think Abbey Road's my favorite. But now number two, Revolver, Sergeant Pepper, I could probably go either way. I really, really think it's a
Mm.
fantastic album. Yes, of course, it would be better with these songs on it, but it is what it is,
Yeah,
and you end up getting the best double A side ever released, right?
yeah. And God knows with modern technology like the Penny Lane I listened to today was remastered, and all the goodies really come out dimensionally then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know why. Maybe I should give that remaster another listen because I'm still not. I don't know why. Peppers doesn't really completely do it for me, and I just don't know why. But there's great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's incredible stuff there. I don't feel like that New York Times critic I sent you the article
Right.
to, just about panned the whole thing.
Don't forget to
But
put that in the description for folks out there who might want to read it.
oh
It's
yeah,
interesting.
that's a good idea. I have the link, right? Good. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, an interesting contemporaneous, right? 1967 review in the New York Times of
Contemporaneous,
Sergeant Pepper,
yes,
and
sir. Yeah.
it's not a fawning review.
Yeah. So we're about to discuss just what we discussed before the show started, which is the four on the floor piano. But before I do that, I want to talk about a certain chain of custody that sort of happens in the pop airwaves. Um, when I was listening, in fact, I could have spent like a couple of extra hours researching Penny Lane. Instead, I found myself a couple of extra hours researching Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys. Because
Related.
I felt a connection, right? I felt
Yeah.
that there was a connection between these songs.
Mhm.
And I started listening to all this stuff, and I found out that Good Vibrations was indeed released before Penny Lane, right? And I found out that, in fact, a lot of the motivation behind Paul's writing style in Penny Lane was from Good Vibrations, right? So if you listen to Good Vibrations, you're going to hear that ding, 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 but it's faster. It's like ding, ding. Geez, I don't, I should have, all the research I did on it, so anyway, that goes on. Very similar to Penny Lane. All right.
Mm.
Uh, so that's why I was really happy to discover that, Paul was influenced by this because I heard it. I heard it really clear. And then when you hear the piccolo trumpet solo, right? They're doing the Beach Boys, that really super high falsetto,
Yeah.
and that is totally Beach Boys,
Yeah.
1000%
Yeah.
Beach Boys influence right there,
Yeah.
which Brian Wilson should have been proud of. He really should have. All right, first I want to say this one thing. I have a good auditory imagination, so when I was a kid, I wouldn't listen to records to figure out the chords of song. I'd listen to what was in my head when I, kind of replaying in my head. And when I'd play Penny Lane, first of all, I did it in C, but it's in the oddball key of B. Whatever, but I'll do it in B. But what I heard was, Lane, there is a bubble showing photographs. Right, like that. But upon discovery, I found out that what we're hearing in the keyboard, the right hand of the keyboard is going, which is actually, yeah, that's even reminiscent of Beach Boys and a lot of 60s
Yeah.
music.
I was just
you know.
thinking that sounds Beach Boysy when you
Yeah,
isolate
yeah.
it like that, doesn't it? Yeah.
So what? Now I was going through these. Like, is it an E? That second chord, is that an E chord? Is it a C sharp minor, which would both be the likely candidates? All right, the other one. That was what I settled on, but it's still, every time I listen, it didn't sound right. And then prior to the show, we discovered, okay, wait a second, this is a B, and then a B suspended fourth. So we're talking about two chords. Now, if I sang the song without the bass part, you hear, Penny Lane, there is a Baba showing photographs of every head he's had the pleasure, and so on, right? It doesn't quite fill in. But I have to do the bass part an octave higher because won't get the low note on the guitar itself. But he plays against this. His bass part starts in a high register, and then he goes right down to the low. And by the way, that's another thing. If you listen to Good Vibrations, the sound of the bass, the actual tonal color, the tone quality of the bass is something Paul also picked up on. All right. If you A-B the two songs, you'll hear the real influence. And that was the great Kaye playing bass on that. So, anyway, okay. So we have this chain of custody so far. We have Good Vibrations and we have Penny Lane. And then one thing that there's a song by the Turtles called Elenore. And I always thought the ending of the song was a total rip of Penny Lane. You sing Penny Lane, right? And they sing
Elenore.
No, they sing It's the same line as the Beatles. And of course with Penny Lane you had the sustained chord going, Penny Lane, right? They do the same thing, they sustain a chord. All right, so there's a third element in the chain right there is I don't think those guys were consciously trying to do Penny Lane, but they were consciously trying to, quotes, be as good as the Beatles. And honestly, that's a great song. They did a great job with some of their songs, truly. It's just that nobody had the prolific quality that the Beatles had. You know, I could claim songs from the Mamas and the Papas and Jimmy Webb and all these other people as being just as great as Beatles songs. But the thing was the output. The difference is the output. The Beatles just really put it out there. So anyway, now my voice isn't too high a register for you to hear the effect that the bass would have had. But point being that when you do these two chords, so what it's sounding like is we're going from B to G sharp minor to C sharp minor, but wait, yeah, da 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 da, right? It's suggesting and even like in the Wikipedia article about it, they said it was a 1625. But the thing is, they're not saying they're not talking about the details.
No.
It's an implied 1625 because the bass is moving like that. If you just hold it like this, it's not going to sound like the song. It's not going to do it. So, yeah. So there's that little bit. Yeah, I'm glad I brought up the song Elenore and Good Vibrations because it really, like, this was an era where there was like a kind of reaching for that incredible sound that we get from Pet Sounds and from Sgt. Pepper, you know. So we have that. Yeah, so I think my main point in that is simply that we have actually two chords, but it sounds like four because of the bass movement. Right.
I never consciously picked up on that, but when you were playing that bass line, I knew I was like, I'm hearing something. And when you say it's the 1625, oh yeah, right.
Yeah. Now, for viewers that don't know the term, audiate means musical imagination or auditory imagination, right? So as a kid, when I heard Eleanor Rigby, right? Eleanor Rigby. When I heard Penny Lane, not only did I omit certain things, but I added certain things as well. And if I could sit and talk with Paul McCartney, I'd say to him, why did you make this choice? Because to me, there was a few obvious choices That did not happen. Okay. All right. So let's go. Show me photograph of every head he's had the pleasure to know. Oh, sorry. Wait, where am I? I'm B. Wait. Oh, sorry. B. Now, when we get there, the bass goes. Right? Listen to that again. Right? Now, the funny thing is, he hits an A note, and that's what I filled in on the bass. All right, so. So now, if he had hit that A note, we would have gotten a chromatic line. Right? But instead, it's kind of awkward because that. And I always wondered that that's something that Paul wouldn't have missed, that chromatic line, but yet and I'd love to pick his brain out, like, dude, why? Why'd you choose that? Secondly, when we get to the modulation, to the next key, the song is in two keys. If we want to talk about the form, it's basically AAB, 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 and then kind of B and another B, but in a different key. They modulate up. All right. So the song is in the key of B major for the verses and A major for the choruses. One of those classic whole step modulations that they were into. Okay. So I'm going to show you what I used to audiate in my head. Okay. So so first this. Now we're going to go to the chorus. Right? That sound pretty fluid, right? It didn't sound bad or anything. But what they again, he's missing out on a line because he went. All right, he went from the F sharp sus4 to F sharp, so we get a B, an A sharp, and if we had suspended the E, we would have gotten. But he goes, which was, to me, that was and in my mind, that was going on in the song. I mean, that's the way I heard it in my head. So whenever I played the song, I'd always go, which, yeah, it's just very surprising.
Can I speculate as to why he might have done it? Because you're absolutely right. It would be much more mellifluous, much more fluid if it did that descent. But I think that moment is not meant to be mellifluous. I think it's meant to be like a wake up. It's coming here.
Well, that's
meant to punch you in the face a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point, because even the bass, dun, 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 right? It's kind of, okay, we're going to cut here. And yeah. So, yeah. But that could have still happened with, dun, 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 dun. It could have still happened, the cut. But maybe he felt it was too notey or something. Because to me, it just seemed like the obvious choice. You suspended this chord. Why don't you suspend the next chord down, Yeah, so you notice I'm kind of picking at the song here. You know how much I love the song. It's one of my top 10 favorite Beatles songs. But I'm picking at it on purpose, because I don't want to over-glorify the song either, It's actually, when I looked at it, I realized this is not a very complicated song whatsoever. If you take the, when, again, you put this is one of the problems I have as a guitar teacher is somebody says, teach me to play this song, and you have the guitar part, but then you have 5 other instruments layered over it. And somehow you have to kind of get that all onto one guitar, the way I did that when I played it, I used to even fake the bass part. It was easier in C. I can't really do it in B, but that sort of thing. But the basic bones, I didn't want to go through all the trouble through the entirety of the song. I would do it to kind of show off for a moment and then go into the regular chords. All right, so that is a 1-6-2-5. All right, and that's the way I played it, and that's what Wikipedia says. But when you deconstruct it, it's actually not. It's just more suggestive of 1-6-2-5.
Well, it's like in the arrangement of it, right?
It's in the arrangement.
Pieces coming together, right? Like you often talk about, was it Beethoven hitting a Hendrix chord or something? But it's like, in 7 different instruments, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Bach did a number of really wild kind of avant-garde chords that he used to sneak in. I know that. Beethoven's going to come up in a minute, a little bit later, actually. We can talk about the trumpet solo on the... Oh, well, wait a second. There's more production stuff. Let me go through the chords first, okay? So what we have is a 1-6-2-5 in B, which amounts to B, G sharp minor, C sharp minor, F sharp, B, C sharp minor. Now the analysis here, we're in the key of B major, and suddenly we make a sudden jump to the minor key of B minor. So that's called parallel minor. When you're in a major key, like B, and you change that root chord to a minor chord, like B minor, that's considered a parallel change, all right? Moving from a parallel key is a minor key to a major key, or a major key to a minor key with the same root, which is B. All right. Now, as is the case with minor keys, you have all this chromatic latitude, meaning note, down in steps like that. So if he were to have gone to the A in the bass, and just for argument's sake, since he sings that A note, I'm going to say it's a B minor 7, all right? Because he does sing the minor 7. So here is the triad B minor right here, these 3 notes. When I put an A in the bass, some would call it B minor over A, meaning B minor with an A bass. But I call it B minor 7. It doesn't really matter much in this case. B minor 6, because we're dropping that 7 down a half step. Then G major 7, rather than calling it a B minor flat 6, which is not the... I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. You could call it B minor over G, or B minor with a G bass, but really you're forming a G major 7 here. All right. So again, 1-6-2-5, 1-6, 1 minor 7, 1 minor 6, and this would in the key of B minor, this would be the flat 6 major. I won't go into that, but it's doing a harmonic minor move here. There's only one key in which you could find a major chord going down a half step to a dominant 7. Only one kind of scale type does this, and that is the harmonic minor scale. Whenever you hear this, you know you're in harmonic minor. Melodic minor does not do that, okay? And natural minor doesn't do that. So I believe they just play an F sharp 7 there, but just an F sharp major there, but it really doesn't matter because it's functioning like F sharp 7. So let me play through there. Now, it's not purely an F sharp 7 because we have the suspension first, then the suspension resolves, and then they suspend again, and then resolve. And then, of course, we're back to the key of B. So what happens there, all right? This is the linking chord. This is so beautiful the way this all works. And I think this is one reason why the Beatles use whole step modulations, because there's so many there's a couple of chords in both keys that overlap.
Okay, so one revelation here is that when you're modulating down one whole step, the four chord in the original key is the 5 chord in the new key.
Right, exactly.
And so what do they do to come back?
All right, well, we know that the F sharp 7, first of all, is the 5 chord that takes us to B, right? So we're going from D. So now, does that have a familiar ring to you somehow?
It does sound parallel relative to me, yes.
Bingo. Because if I were to play the F sharp up here, up here, the Aeolian ascent right there.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from. But I don't know if I could actually use the theory for it, but it is an Aeolian ascent. In other words, it sounds like the parallel relative switch, but there's probably some connection or the other. Yeah, okay. All right, let's think about this for a second. So I'm in the. Oh wait, we're in the key of A though. Yeah, it's wow. It's it's too much of a stretch. I mean, if we thought from the key of B that move from D to F sharp 7 would make sense, but we're in the key of A at this point, so it's very, very tricky the way that happens. I'll you know what I'll
Wait,
probably
okay,
have.
so is it possible that rather than a no, that doesn't make sense. I was going to say rather than a modulation, maybe it's an umbrella key, that we've switched into the.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it's not that though. It really isn't that.
No.
But you know, when I was first developing the theory, I was thinking that there's a connection not only between the two keys that I had set up originally for the music theory, but there's a connection also between two keys a whole step apart. And I have yet to crack that nut, but there's something to that too. All right. So
once we crack that, we get Penny Lane.
Yeah, exactly. All right. One thing I didn't mention is first of all, the song is not even slightly reminiscent of John Lennon, except in one way. Do you have any idea what that might be? It'd be a stretch for you to guess it, but
well, it starts on the first note singing right away.
Bingo, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. There's no introduction to the song, which John does all the time, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to pick at the song here. What I don't like is the way the vocal comes in. It's clunky to me because he has the bass going. Penny Lane, in Penny Lane, there is a bar, and it would have been much better if he just did a single. In Penny Lane, there is Penny Lane, there is something similar. But it just seemed too fast and too clunky and too weird for me, you know. But the song, to me, the song is such a treat. I just adore it so much. You know that, James. And
should we talk about the trumpet solo?
Now we could. All right, let's talk about the trumpet solo. There might be something else I might want to get into regarding that, but let's talk about the trumpet solo.
Okay, I can provide the background story-wise to this solo. There was an article about it a couple of years ago when Paul McCartney asked an English trumpeter to play the painfully high Penny Lane piccolo trumpet solo. Picture this: Paul McCartney watching TV in a most ordinary scene and happening across footage of the English orchestral trumpeter David Mason performing a Bach Brandenburg concerto. So inspired he becomes that he knows he just must invite him to play on a new Beatles song he's percolating on. That's how the story of the notoriously high piccolo trumpet solo on Penny Lane starts. And then there's the rest of the information in this article, but it goes on to quote the the trumpeter himself, David Mason. I took 9 trumpets along, and we tried various things by a process of elimination, settling on the B-flat piccolo trumpet. We spent 3 hours working it out. Paul sang the parts he wanted. George Martin wrote them out. I tried them, but the actual recording was done quite quickly. They were jolly high notes, quite taxing, but with the tapes rolling, we did 2 takes as overdubs on top of the existing song.
Jolly high notes. How British of him.
That's one way to put it.
Well, I don't know how true it is, but one story I heard was that he complained that the note wasn't actually in the range of the piccolo trumpet, right? And James, on our one-on-one talks and our guitar lessons, you've heard this story a million times, but I gotta tell it for the sake of the listening audience. Is that my Beethoven story, right? There's Beethoven wrote a cello concerto, and he had one of the top cellists of his neighborhood come and play the piece for him. And the guy is looking at the music, and he notes to Beethoven, Ludwig, this note, you can't even play it on the cello. It's not there. And he goes, but it must be like that. And I thought of that when I thought of Paul, like the Dave Mason going, oh, well, the note's not there, but it must be. Oh, by the way, let's talk about the actual phrasing of the trumpet. If I was thinking that Paul actually did write those lines, and according to what you just read, he hummed those lines. And this is really remarkable when you think about it. There's all those quick triplet figures. It's actually really surprisingly good and very surprisingly classical as well. That melody came out of his mind.
It is certainly possible, to be fair. We weren't in the room, but it's possible that he had a slightly less intricate version of that melody. And George Martin kind of spruced it up with the triplet figures and what have you.
Or Dave Mason himself.
Or David Mason, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. True, yeah.
But at any rate, it does, yes, you can definitely tell. Once you find out, oh, this is basically Bach converted to the Beatles. Yeah, okay, makes sense.
I was never a big fan until years later, but the guy's pretty genius, I have to admit it. I just recently watched the Rick Beato interview with Billy Joel, pop songwriter Billy Joel. And Billy was name dropping a lot of people, not in a pretentious way. He just, people he's met along the way. And he happened to mention, they brought up the song "I Love You Just the Way You Are," and Paul McCartney had commented to him, "I only wish that I had written that song." And Billy Joel said exactly my sentiment too. First of all, he said to Rick, "Can you imagine, like Paul McCartney?" And he just shook his head and said, the guy is a consummate melodist. And that's the way I think of Paul. His melodies are just remarkably fluid, and they're just so natural, crazy brilliant. All right. So I think I'm going to bring
musically to state about the solo, as in terms of the melody itself.
The melody itself is all diatonic, Yeah. It's diatonic, meaning it's just following the scale notes of the key. When it changes key, he changes with it. So it goes from major to minor in that part of the solo. Now I'm going to bring something up that you might find interesting. All right. We're going to talk about the vocals, right? And I'm trying to remember when this moment hit me, but I believe it was in high school, which doesn't make sense to me because I don't remember music being piped in through the speakers when we were having lunch or whatever in high school. But I seem to place myself there, and I'm hearing the song Penny Lane. And when it comes in summer, meanwhile back, the in summer, I thought it sounded like John. There's a little bit of, listen to it, there's a rasp in the voice, right? Like a John Lennon style rasp. And the other line, I sit and meanwhile back, that other line too. I did a quick search, and it's John sing that one little line, which I don't know. That was a fun
You know,
little.
I've never even questioned that. I think I've just always assumed it was John.
Oh, you did? All right. Yeah. To me, it was like a revelation when I heard it. I thought it was all Paul, you know. So, but only other thing maybe to comment on. First of all, I want to talk about the lyric. Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes. I love that. I absolutely love that. You know, I remember in the '70s, this nice guy folk music dude, John Denver, right? Run Country Roads and all those nice woodsy songs. I remember I had a bandmate back in high school that said, "Oh, I'm going to write a John Denver song. Trees, mountains, lakes."
Yeah.
Anyway, he's saying, "You fill up my senses."
Mm.
And I thought that's such a crappy, not poetic way of saying something, you know. I mean, I get his intention, but to say, if he were to say, "You are in my ears and in my eyes," that is so intimate. That's, you know, I just love that turn of a phrase.
He definitely has a poetic voice in this song, and the nurse selling poppies from a tray who feels she's as if she's in a play. She is anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
There's definitely, so yes, this is definitely a psychedelic song,
Oh,
and
without question.
at least part of that is, of course, the lyrical content.
I think the lyric, and that's about psychedelia that I didn't mention with when we were talking about Strawberry Fields, is on psychedelics, certain sounds become like cartoon sounds. Like when a car rushes by, it'll sound like vroom, like it would, you know, in a cartoon. You could even see the letters spelled out, VROOOM, you know. And a big, like a lot of things I remember in my experiences, like traffic and stuff like that, would sound like trumpets. And when you listen to some of the trumpet stuff in Strawberry Fields and this too, it's very evocative of an LSD trip. It's very, very subtle, but it truly is evocative. There's something about the way the sounds are organized that evoke it, and it's a whole art form unto itself to do that, to actually evoke that sense, you know. What's the line? Do you know it offhand? For a fish and finger pies.
Yes. What does that mean? I believe it is a dirty reference to a type of sexual activity that young people might undertake, but
Right, right. A finger pie.
mm,
Right, right, right. Which is typical, like, you know, the Beatles sing tit, 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 and
yeah,
girl, you
right,
know.
right, 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 right.
They always, you know, they made those references. Then they got more kind of out front. Why don't we do it in the road? But, you know, back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me see if there's any point I missed here.
I will just back up what you're saying about the sort of psychedelic nature of some of the soundscape, and yeah, listening today to some of the isolated percussion track and things, some of the sounds really are just bizarre, and I guess you kind of subconsciously kind of know that they're there when you hear the final mix, but it really does make me wonder why did they even think to put that sound in there in that way, like it's just, it
Yeah,
sounds so random and so weird and so left
yeah.
field. You kind of just accept it when it's in the finished mix, but
Well, that's part of the psychedelic thing. And again, it's a very, very subtle thing. I don't even know if they consciously did this, but when you listen to the song, when it goes from verse to verse, sometimes you'll hear that kind of high pitched piano that sounds like a harpsichord, dent,
mm,
dent, dent,
mm,
and then you'll hear a piano the next time around instead, doing
mm,
more legato notes.
mm,
Every time they do a verse, something like a different element is added in, and that is also very LSD-ish because, like, in other words, if I hear that exaggerated vroom sound from a car, and then I hear another car go by, right? If I have any sense at all, I go, "Oh, it's just a car," and you'll hear it in that moment. You'll hear it like a regular
mm,
car, you know. So
mm,
there's this kind of acid is a very strange drug. Remember when George was talking about their trip and they left the club and he's driving 10 miles an hour in his
Yeah,
Mini
yeah,
Cooper.
yeah.
And he said it was so strange because one minute everything to be just like it seemed to be just normal, and then the next minute all of a sudden you're flooded with these wild hallucinations and stuff. That's the way it was, and I think the Beatles somehow managed to evoke that sense of going in and out of these states, you know. So I think that there's something to that. I want to talk about the end of the song, and I told you about my little joke I used to play on people with this song, but Penny Lane is in my. So we're in the key of in my eyes. Now, there beneath the blue suburban skies I sit, and meanwhile back. Instead of going to a verse now, he sings Penny Lane again, but in the new key of B. Penny Lane is in my ears. So I remember when, not too long ago, well, it was long ago, but I used to get together parties with people who knew Beatles songs, and I'd have a guitar, and I'd do Penny Lane. And this is what I do. I trick them into singing the chorus higher and higher and higher and higher until it became impossible. So it's like, I'll demonstrate. Here's the original key. Penny Lane, Lane is in my ears and in my eyes. There beneath the blue suburban skies I sit, and meanwhile back. Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes. Now it should end right around here. There beneath the blue, and this is what I do. Skies I sit, and meanwhile back. Penny Lane is in, and it keeps getting higher. Yeah, beneath the blue suburban skies I sit, and meanwhile back Penny Lane. And I keep going higher and higher and higher until people like finally figured out what's happening. I can't sing this anymore.
Yeah. It's a good trick. Well, it could just keep going forever. Why not?
It could just keep cycling around and whole step modulations. So yeah, that's Penny Lane, man. And that's Vinny. That's the Vinny imagination with music.
Is
Like,
that the least subtle McCartney modulation?
I don't know. That's a question I'd really have to. That's one of those things that you keep in the back of your mind. And then you hear a song go, no, this one.
Because John certainly did some amazingly in-your-face modulations, like Mr. Kite and stuff like that. But
oh, Mr. Kite is nuts. Mr. Kite is really nuts modulating because he's modulating the minor keys and a whole step. It's just so weird to do that.
Yeah. Like it's definitely in your face. But Paul usually very mellifluous.
Very mellifluous. But to me, the modulation, even though it's a big one, is beautiful. It's just really gorgeous when it goes to that D to the F sharp. At least I think so. Real quick, getting back to the 4 on the floor piano, D, 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 right? There are some somewhat modern bands that I've heard that I'd go, oh, they sound a little like the Beatles, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I realized they're doing that on the piano. And this all really came from Brian Wilson. And the reason why you do 4 on the floor piano is because it's like if I didn't know how to strum, right, on guitar, right, but I could form chords, if I just did Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes, just 1, 2, it would be easy to sing at the same time. You wouldn't have to juggle any coordination with your muscles. But if you're doing a complex rhythm, it's hard to sing. So the same with the piano, especially the piano. If you do a complex rhythm on a piano and try to write some music, it gets harder because now you're fussing with the rhythm and learning how to play that instead of the melody, right? So, yeah.
Well, I'll differ with your analysis there because Howard Goodall reliably informs me that this did not come from Brian Wilson, but Little Richard, who had the amazing innovation of putting 8 beats in a bar. But Paul McCartney was the genius who put 4 beats in a bar.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about. But
for people who don't know, I'm referencing Howard Goodall's BBC presentation on Sgt. Pepper's Musical Revolution. So we'll put that in the description. People can check it out. It's a great analysis of Sgt. Pepper generally, but that was a bit weird.
Yeah, yeah. I'll cut him slack for that bit of kind of like what like it's like saying the Empire State Building is tall. Oh, but I'll cut him slack because he has the same passion that I have for this song, Penny Lane. He gets it. It's like it's just so brilliantly written. I could not find the quote. I hate AI sometimes because it can't figure out what you're trying to ask it. I was trying to find. There was a quote. It may be from Ian McDonald's book, but about Paul's song "For No One," and it was described as somebody. The composition itself was like somebody making masterful chess moves from one section to the next. And I tried to find the quote. I can't find it, but I feel this way about Penny Lane too. If you listen, give it a good close listen, um, and listen to the color changes that happen. Paul even said he was going for a clean sound in these days, right? He wanted a clean sound, which I think meant to him, all the colors of the song must stand out on their own. Uh, but listen to like compare a verse to another verse and listen to what the changes are. you know, just absolutely. And by the way, not to put aside his bass playing in this is wonderful. It's just like the melodic bass lines in this are just wonderful.
To be fair, this is one of those songs that I was never a huge fan of growing up, and I always preferred Strawberry Fields. But you convinced me to listen to it and re-listen to it over the years, and I have a much deeper appreciation for it. I find, for my taste, the thing that makes me appreciate the song the most is listening to the piano track.
Huh? Yeah.
Once I can appreciate it on that level, because there just does seem to be too much flowery kind of orchestration going on, but just the chords
Yeah.
themselves are pretty good.
It's funny. Right now, I'm on kind of a Beach Boys, Brian Wilson thing, and I just today I was well, I was working with a student on some song, and then I said, "Well, this reminds me of California Girls," and I figured out the chord progression to the intro, which for some reason on a guitar you can't make it sound like the song. It's weird. This chord. That there's a seventh in there, but it doesn't sound like the one they're doing. And I tried putting the seventh in bass. That doesn't do it. But anyway, that led me on to this guy is more into jazz and doesn't really, have a thing for pop music. And I went through the entire song and showed him how brilliant the chord movement is in that song. It's just amazing. And I said, "Have you heard Good Vibrations?" And he said, "No." I said, "I'm going to send you a clip of Good Vibrations." And today I was looking at some of the breakdowns and stuff like that of that song. And that's one of those songs where if you separate out different parts, like you said, isolate parts, you'll find that, oh my God, that's in there, and that adds to the texture of the song. It's cool. It's very cool. And Paul was good at that. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for the night, I suppose. James, what do you think?
I think we've probably covered the bases here.
I think
But if
so too.
anybody has anything else to add, please let us know in the comments.
Yeah, if they do. In fact, damn, there was some question I did have that I wanted to leave for the viewers, and I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come to me and I'll pin it.
Here's my question. Have people out there been to Penny Lane? I did take the bus tour, the magical mystery bus tour, a couple of years ago in Liverpool, and we did go to Penny Lane and got the picture. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
it
yeah.
was. It was nice to put a place to the song.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Did you also see Strawberry Fields? Or
Sure did. Yeah.
that's amazing. It's amazing how those are now historical places.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. My kids probably failed to appreciate it as much as I did, but
Uh,
one day they'll look back.
I was just looking at that quote, that famous quote from Brian Wilson, talking to some guy named Larry, and he said, like, "I tell you, Larry, In the year 2000, the kids are still going to be listening to the Beatles. Think of how long ago that was. And it's really true. It's really true. That, and they're even still being discovered by young people today.
I was just thinking today, just on a final note. So I was thinking today from the perspective of someone who would be skeptical, like, okay, the Beatles, wow, what a hot take, you like the Beatles, whatever. And I have to concede, yeah, it's not exactly the most original musical take, but whatever. But I was consciously thinking, it is impossible for anyone at least in the Western developed world, hey, even in Japan, to have not heard a Beatles song in their life. Even if they didn't know it was a Beatles song, you have heard it. And I was thinking about, even here in Japan, there's Muzak versions in convenience stores and restaurants. I went to a ramen restaurant that just played just Beatles, an infinite repeat of like all their songs mixed together. It's crazy. And so I was thinking this, and then I stepped into a convenience store like 10 minutes later, and there was a cover version of Got to Get You Into My Life.
Wow. Yeah.
It's ubiquitous. And for a reason. Damn it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. For a reason. I mean, once you hear a Beatles melody, it's hard to get rid of it. It's very recognizable.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the next time we do this.
Yes, and we must discuss offline, online, but discuss
off
what
air.
It's going to be. Yeah,
sure.
Off there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a good day or night wherever you're viewing from, and we'll see you again. Take care.